Alright, so this is that trigger warning video I promised you a little bit before. If you've gotten this far on the playlist, congratulations on your strong of heart / stomach. These are dissection tools. Now, I have here quite a few things. These are all the tools that I'm going to be using. Now, of these tools, I have here in my hands, I have also a magnifying glass. I have some hooks that are used to hold things down. I have two different size scalpels. I prefer the larger scalpel, so I tend to not use this one. This is a size 3. This is a size 4 scalpel. I prefer the larger scalpel, just a preference. But the smaller scalpel is for smaller things. You're supposed to be able to use the smaller scalpel. Whatever. And this uses a size 22 blades. This is a pair of suture scissors. I find that the pair of suture scissors is pretty good for blunt cuts, so I added it to my kit. And these are actual dissection scissors. The large and small scissors are here. This is a blunt probe and a wedge right here. And this is a pair of blunt forceps. It's a pair of blunt forceps, which has a nice gripping edge. And this is a pair of sharp forceps, all right, which also has that gripping edge, that nice gripping edge. All right, they are large and small, used for different kinds of gripping. They're not tweezers. They're not for plucking your eyebrows. These have been in human beings, donor human beings at med school, not, never mind. All right. And these are mounted needle probes. These stick into things pretty darn well, and there's a pair of them. Now, of what you see here, you decide what is the most important. You're wrong. It's actually the hands. So the hands are actually what you're going to be using most in whatever you're dealing with in the specimen. The hands are used to separate tissues and separate apart the specimens and the layers of tissues, and you can do with your hands what's called blunt dissection. So when you have 2 layers of tissues, you can actually use your fingers and just like get in there and just start like take your fingers and just wedge them in between and start moving things aside. Just move with your fingers. So most of these tools I actually don't even bother using. I rarely have used the magnifying glass because I see things with my naked eye fairly well. So I don't use those. These hooks, I don't think I've ever taken them out of the package. Like I said, I prefer the larger scalpel, so not so much. I like using the blunt scissors, and because of that, I've stopped using these larger scissors fairly much. Now, I do like using the smaller scissors for more intricate cuts, so I do keep those around. And this larger probe, this gets a lot of use by me, and I do alternate between these two different types of forceps. And every once in a while, I'll use a mounted needle, but not terribly often. I prefer using the probe. So I'll keep one around, maybe. So these are the tools that I prefer using. Everybody has their own preference, but in general, this is my preference. And I'll grab these as I go. There's no real rhyme or reason to how I keep my tools. I just keep them in a big pile and just search for what I want as I go for it. That said, I am going to teach you a real quick technique, how to hold a pair of scissors. These 2 fingers are your most important fingers here. So when you open the pair of scissors, your thumb and your ring finger and your index finger goes on the joint. This gives you good control. It lets you control where the scissors are pointing. You can do sideways cuts and up and straight cuts this way. This gives you more precise control over what you're doing with the thing. And it also prevents you from like losing control of things. If you were to use these 2 fingers, you could very easily lose your grip on this, or it could get stuck in your thumb or in your finger all the way, and then you just lose, and it just gets trapped into your finger like that. And then you have no control over where the scissor goes. It gets stuck and just tears apart your specimen. So these are just some quick, not so much safety tips, but technique tips. As far as safety tips are concerned, this is extraordinarily sharp. These tend to stay pretty sharp over a long period of time, although these blades are supposed to be designed for single use. You can remove these blades and put them back on if you so choose. They're designed for single use, but they stay good over a pretty long period of time. Now, always cut away from yourself. Never cut toward yourself. You are going to cut your fingers pretty deeply if you try and cut toward yourself. So always cut away. If you're going to grip something, never grip with your fingers while using the scalpel. Always grip with a forceps and then use the scalpel. And note the grip on the scalpel blade. I will sometimes hold the scalpel here as I grip. That's not ideal because I will sometimes lose grip, but the grips for the scalpel is here and here. That gives me the most control, and it keeps my fingers away from the sharp parts of the blade here. So this is the best gripping part of the blade, right there and there. And your scalpel is actually one of your least used tools because it's designed for very deep cuts. So when you really need to just set something and just cut something in half, your scalpel is what you're going to use. Now, let's set these tools off to the side. I'm going to take my specimen over here. This is a sheep pluck. Now, a pluck is a heart and lungs still attached to one another. So this is a trachea.
Okay.